Hello, and welcome to the Garden of the Black Roses. This is Fanfiction. Dreams of the Undead, Arc 1, Chapter 5. A few weeks later. Joey paced in front of Tia and Tristan. The three had begun to notice Yugi starting to become more withdrawn and tired. Ever since he started wearing the black outfits, he had a change in his personality to the point that they wondered where their friend went and who this was in his place. They had tried to remove the collar and cuffs from Yugi, who had become very defensive and angry at them. A yelling match ensued, causing the three to apologize to keep the peace between them, and a very unstable Yugi. "Do you think he's self-harming?" Joey asked quietly, as they waited for Yugi to appear from wherever he disappeared to for half of lunch. "I can't think of any other reason why he's wearing long sleeves all the time, as well as the collar and the cuffs." "Before, I would say no," Tia said, spotting Yugi running over to them. "But now, I'm not so sure. Tomorrow, we follow him to see what is going on." The boys agreed before happily falling into random banter with their previously missing friend. "I'll see you guys soon," Yugi called as he dashed out of the classroom the next day. The three nodded to each other and followed after Yugi as he made his way up the stairs to the roof. They snuck behind the storage shed up there and watched as Yugi set himself down against the fence, but facing the doorway to the roof, as if waiting for something. They didn't have to wait long. The three looked worried as the Senons made their way over to Yugi with a very unsettling look on their faces. But that was the least of their worries. "You're late for once," Yugi called, reaching up to touch his collar. "It's not often that I have to wait for you two." "Oh, shut it," Atemu said, pressing a finger on Yugi's collar, as he knelt at Yugi's right side. "We got held up by the teacher." He undid Yugi's collar, and without a second thought, Yami and he sank their fangs into Yugi's neck. Yugi's eyes widened. No matter how many times they did this, the sensation was one Yugi didn't think he would ever get used to. They licked his neck and waited. "I'm hazing again," Yugi said softly. "Maybe both of you at once is not such a good idea. It's like pins and needles in my head. You sure doing this isn't killing brain cells?" "Isis assured us that us feeding from you in this way won't cause lasting harm to humans," Yami replied, rubbing circles on Yugi's back. "Hazing starting to go?" "Slowly," Yugi replied. He tried to stand but sat back down hard. "Yeah, not safe to move." Atemu put the collar back around Yugi's neck. "How often are you supposed to feed?" "If we did it proper and took the usual 2 pints. Well, you remember what happened the first time we did that?" Yugi nodded, and Atemu continued. "Twice a week with 2 pints. But if you don't replenish it quickly enough, we could make you very sick." "And making me hazy every day isn't as bad?" Yugi asked with a disbelieving snort. "You two just want an excuse to touch me more often rather than less often. I share a bed with you two at night, isn't that enough?" "You know the answer to that, Yugi," Yami replied. Yugi bristled at the tone. It's like they're talking to a child who is having a temper tantrum. I'll show them temper tantrum. He stood up unsteadily, but didn't fall back down. "And if I don't like that answer?" "You can't do anything about it, Uncle," Atemu said, reaching out to try and pull Yugi back down, but instead received a slap on the wrist from Yugi. You're Heba. We told you we're never going to let go of you. Other than remembering an ancient tune and how to play the flute without learning, I know nothing about Heba's life with you. Yugi spun on his heel to face them, his eyes flashing angrily. I tolerate this because you promised it wouldn't interfere with my life. The tournament is next week and I'll be in Tokyo. Were you going to stop me because you don't want me to go? All because of your old memory of a slave lover that I have no memories of? I'm tired of being kissed. I'm tired of being touched and molested by the two of you as soon as I step into that mansion. And most of all, I am tired of having to lie to my friends about everything. His voice had risen to the point that he was now screaming at Yami and Atemu. I'm not Heba. I don't want to be touched unless I say it's okay. He lowered his voice again before saying, I feel like all I am to you two is a blood bag and a sex toy. If I'm not, then please give me space. I won't forget to feed the both of you, but I want to come to love both of you and feel comfortable being touched by both of you in my own time. He turned and took a few steps towards the door before looking over his shoulder. Please think about what I'm saying to you this time. Yami and Atemu were up and holding Yugi's arms before he could take another step. You're Heba. Atemu insisted, pulling Yugi back down onto his lap. Yami knelt down and leaned forward to capture Yugi's lips with his own. Atemu's hands made their way up into Yugi's top. Yugi's cry allowed Yami to push his head back until it was trapped against Atemu's shoulder. Atemu lowered his head to nibble on Yugi's neck as the youngest of the three squirmed in their grasp, trying to get free. Yami moved his knee closer, settling it right between Yugi's legs. Joey fought hard to contain a growl at the scene before them. Yugi had told them exactly what he thought and they brushed it away like a fly. To make things worse, they were touching him a lot. Yugi's cries snapped him out of his thoughts. Enough. Let me go. They were once again muffled by Atemu catching him in a lip lock and forcing him to slide from his position against his chest to the ground. Yami moved and traced Yugi's hips with his fingers before teasing his bare waist. Joey turned to his friends with a pointed stare that almost screamed, "They're going to rape him if we don't do something." They nodded to each other before stepping out from their hiding spot. "Stop molesting my best friend," he yelled angrily at the two of them. All three jumped, and Yugi took the chance to escape and skitter his way to behind his friends. He panted heavily, tears falling freely down his face. Never before had the vampires tried to touch him like that at school. Usually it was being bitten, recovery, then return to where his friends were waiting. "How long have you been there?" Atemu growled as he got up from the ground, his eyes piercing into Joey's. "You don't know what we do to humans who catch us feeding." "You can't do anything to us," Tia replied strongly. Her arms were around Yugi, trying to soothe him. "You cannot hurt another supernatural, no matter how powerful you think you are." "Supernaturals, eh?" Yami asked with a smirk. "So you know what Yugi is then?" "We've always known," Tristan said. He stood next to Joey, as both stood like a barrier between the vampires and Yugi. "We were asked by his grandpa to watch over him." Yugi made an indignant squawk sound behind him. Tristan turned slightly to whisper. He was worried that dark creatures would attack you and, without your wings, you would be defenseless. "So you three know about me being an angel descent?" Yugi asked before sighing. "So what are you three?" "We want to know that too," Atemu commanded with his arms folded. Yami kept a steady hand on his back, trying to remind Atemu to keep his anger in check. With a smirk, Tia leaned over and whispered in Yugi's ear, "I'm a succubus. All three of us are full blood, not part. And your grandpa had your best interests at heart when he asked us to do this. He wanted you to have protectors, who were also your close friends." Yugi gave her a small smile. "You did that on purpose," he said with a mock-accusing tone. Tia placed a hand on her heart with a shocked expression on her face. "But why didn't you use it on me? It would keep me closer to you." "I don't like to use it on someone I truly like," Tia replied with a smile. They both heard Atemu growl. "Besides, you would be immune to it, I think." She switched places with Tristan. Tristan gave Atemu a smirk before leaning forward to whisper in Yugi's ear, "I'm a Kelpie." Yugi's expression must have displayed a lot of confusion, because he laughed and added, "Kelpies are water spirits that take the form of horses." "Is that why you and Joey get along so well?" Yugi asked, poking his tongue out in jest. "I have a feeling I know what Joey is." "You should, Yug," Joey replied with a laugh. "I've used it enough times to help you out of tight spots." "And it explains why Kaiba calls you Pup whenever he sees you," Yugi teased, making Joey blush bright red. His smile faded away. "When did Grandpa ask you to look after me?" "After the incident when you were about 7, Tia replied softly. Yugi's eyes flashed darkly for a second before tilting his head curiously at her. He felt after that incident you needed protection. He said your divine aura was strong for a quarter blood, and you'd attract all sorts of creatures to you. "I see," Yugi replied, lowering his head. "Thank you." Atemu and Yami watched the interaction between Yugi and his friends before asking in a loud voice, "This is all well and good that you are his protectors, however, that doesn't mean we can let him go." "So we have a proposition for you," Tia said calmly. Yugi looked nervously up at his friends. He didn't want them getting hurt. "And what is that?" Atemu asked, his arms folded. He didn't want to lose his chance to be with Yugi, no matter how much the little one denied being Heba. He believed that one day Yugi would remember his past life. Part of him was concerned about the incident Tia mentioned. Yugi looked momentarily upset about it. He'd get the story from him sooner or later. "We wish to remain with Yugi as his protectors," Joey said bluntly, earning an odd gasp/groan from Yugi, which means, wherever he goes, we go. "We know Yugi's wishes better than anyone other than himself," Tristan said with a smile. "We are going to keep our promise to his grandpa, to keep an eye on Yugi's safety." "And you don't trust us to protect him?" Atemu asked angrily. "We are better to protect him than you three are." "I don't," Yugi said in a soft voice. It was loud enough for everyone to look at him. His friends smiled while the two vampires stared at him in shock. "I don't trust either of you, as it has been made painfully clear to me that I need protection from the both of you." Yugi stood up unsteadily and rested his hand on Joey's arm. "Can we leave now? I need to contact Kaiba about the tournament." As you wish, Yug," Joey replied. The three guided Yugi to the door and sent him through first, using themselves as a shield against the two vampires. "Don't come near Yugi unless he wishes it," he warned, before closing the door on the roof with a slam. And that's it for this one. yeah, if you enjoyed this story, or if you want to hear any other fan fiction stories or my original pieces, make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, remember, let your imagination grow wild. Bye for now.